Okay, so the easy part first. Can I please get you to say and spell your name and give your title?
Yeah, I'm Gail, Gail, Halvorsen. I'm known as the Berlin Candy Bomber, and I'm co-pilot on the Spirit of Freedom, the C-54, the Berlin airlift airplane that flies around. We flew it to Europe in 1999, Great Britain, France, Luxembourg, Berlin twice. So that's some of the things I do.
I'll be there. And what rank were you, sir?
I started out, of course, as a second lieutenant, and I started out with the Royal Air Force first, and then the Army Air Corps, and then I made a career of 30 years, most of my time in the research and development after the transport operation, research and development in the space program in Los Angeles and around the country, putting up booster rockets for spacecraft.
I'll be dang. Wow, that sounds exciting, actually.
It was.
So you're known as the Candy Bomber. Why is this?
Well, bombs come to the sky, and gravity has no respecter of persons, so you can drop candy bars as well as bombs. I met some kids in Berlin at the gate, near the gate to the airport Tempelhof, a barbed wire fence that went around the field, 30 kids, 9 to 15 years of age. Talked to them for about an hour, and these kids right next to barbed wire on their side, looking at the uniform that bombed them a couple of years before, maybe killed their parents or siblings. But they were friendly. They knew what the Russians were like. They knew what Hitler was like and what happened under Hitler. And they didn't want anything to do with the Soviet system. So they were friendly. They knew that what they wanted was freedom that we took for granted. An hour at the fence, and not one of those 30 kids, by voice inflection or body language, put out their hands and said, "Dummy, don't you no kids like chocolate? Americans have got chocolate. We like some chocolate." Not one. And during the war, I'd flown in foreign countries where the kids had it, and they'd chase you down the street in American uniform and stop you, and we'd carry stuff to give them to escape. George Washington's troop did the same thing. It's nothing new. But what I turned to leave, had to go to get a Jeep to take pictures around bombed out Berlin. Said, "Goodbye, we won't give up on you." They just said, "Don't give up on us." I turned to leave, and then I realized the first time not one had been a beggar for something so extravagant as chocolate, when they were getting dried eggs and dried potatoes and flour for freedom. And when I realized that gratitude, I thought, oh, I wish I'd had something to give them. Reached in my pocket, and all I had was 2 sticks of gum. "Get out of here, you're gonna have bloody noses." Little girls and everybody with the guys, "Get out of here. You can't do anything about it with 2 sticks of gum." Got about 3 steps, and a voice came clear as a bell. Sure, it was the Holy Ghost. It says, "Go back to the fence." There was no equivocation. I mean, Scrooge had done the same thing. Just go back to the fence. And I didn't hesitate. Went back to the fence, and boy, they see me come back, they grabbed the barbed wire. And I reached in my pocket and pulled out 2 sticks of gum. Boy, you're gonna have bloody noses. Do it. Just demand. Broke them in half, 4 pieces through the barbed wire, and then 2 of them to girls and 2 of them to little boys. And here came the crowd. But not one of them tried to grab this stuff. They asked for something. I didn't understand German, but soon knew what it was. It was the wrapper. They wanted a piece of the wrapper. And the kids with half a stick carefully tore off the wrapper in strips, the strips of it, and passed the wrapper around. The kids didn't get any. And the kids then just got a strip, put it up their nose, and smelled it, and smelled it. Their eyes got big when they remembered what it was like when they had sweets. Hadn't had any chocolate for years. And when I saw that, I said, boy, about $10 worth of chocolate bars to put these guys on Easy Street. But I couldn't come back to the fence. I should have been in bed in West Germany to fly that night, but I came back to get those movies. So I couldn't come back to the fence. I'd be with my airplane unloading. I'd have to unload 20,000 pounds of flour and go back to West Germany for more. Couldn't come to the fence, clear across the field. And then an airplane flew over my head as usual and landed behind me. So I'll be within 100 feet of those kids tonight and tomorrow until noon. 3 round trips. And I'll be over 100 feet of them, dropping it out of the airplane. And red light came on. Can't do that. It's against regulations. And I flew by the regs all the time. You can't drop it without permission, like FAA today. And so then I said, they won't be able to see them again. These same people. So I said, come back, stand in the open place between the bombed out buildings, the barbed wire fence. When I come over your head tomorrow, just before I'll come in tonight, but not tonight, look about noon tomorrow, be out in that open place. When I come over your head about 100 feet there, I'll drop enough chocolate bars for all of you to have some if you'll share it. A magic word, will you share it? Jawohl, they said, we'll share it. We'll share it. And jumped up. And they said, wait a minute, how do we know what airplane you're in? Every 5 minutes there's an airplane just like yours coming over land. I fly a different airplane, whatever one's loaded. I don't know what paint job will be on it. And then I remembered the farm when I learned to fly before the war. I'd wiggle the wings over the farm so my mom wouldn't faint, think I was gonna crash. Wiggle the wings. Says, you watch the airplane when it comes over your head the first time going over East Berlin to come around. And when I come over there, I'll wiggle the wings of a big airplane, rock them like this. When you see that airplane wiggle, forget the rest of them. That's got the stuff. They said, get out of here. Let's start this thing. Well, I went back, hitchhiked back in my uniform. Airplane leaving every 5 minutes, no trouble getting back to West Germany. Going back empty, all these airplanes. So I went back and I could only buy a limited amount of chocolate bars as ration for the military in the basic change. I went to my co-pilot and engineer. Said, give me your ration. What are you gonna do? You are? You got permission? No. You're gonna get us in trouble. I said, give me your ration. I'll take responsibility. So good guys, we got 3 rations. 3 weeks of ration. Only once a week you get a ration. 3 weeks of ration, double handful of chocolate bars. I said, holy cow. Hit him in the head with that going 110 miles an hour, I'll make the wrong impression. So as a kid, I didn't have TV. So I'd tie rocks onto a handkerchief and throw it off the roof or whatever. And so I thought, well, I'll stick it on a handkerchief. And then he said, how do you know where you are? Well, then I'll wiggle away. Okay, I said, okay, we'll see you tomorrow. And I had to go and ran. Got the rations, tied the parachutes on him, came back over Berlin that night, and then just before noon the next day, clear, approached the airport, and there down that open place with those 30 kids, they hadn't told another soul. Or wiggle the wings, and they just went crazy, it just blew up, waved like mad. We came down between the buildings, we had to come slot between the buildings. We came down there, and my engineer stands between the 2 pilots, and just like this airplane. There's a flare chute, because you're up emergency flares if you're in trouble at night. And my engineer was sitting right over that flare chute. And so when I came over there, just before their heads, I pulled my hand and dropped it, threw 3 parachutes out the flare chute. And I was worried that we pulled it over the barbed wire on the field where they couldn't get it, you know. It was a short field to hit. And I worried too, more than that, as they unloaded 20,000 pounds of flour, if somebody lined up to take off right there and seen the parachutes come out, got my tail number and reported it, and I could get court-martialed for not following regulations. Well, we taxied out to empty the airplane on the other side of the field, taxied out to take off on the approach end, and there along the barbed wire right by the end of the runway, these 3 kids and the rest of them, 3 arms waving through the barbed wire with parachutes, and all their mouths were going up and down, waving. So I wish they wouldn't do that. Well, anyway, we waved back. And the pilots come back from Berlin, kept coming into the barracks, we flying day and night. What are those kids doing on the end of the runway, waving at everybody? Guy said, I didn't think my gear was down. So I just almost went around. And so he said, well, I knew what it was. I didn't want to tell anybody. One day we did it 3 weeks. Every time we got a new ration, once a week for 3 weeks, we dropped 3 times, 3 weeks, wiggle the wings, and the crowd was getting bigger every week. Came back from Berlin to Rhine-Main, an officer met the airplane. I didn't think that was good. They don't do that much. And he came steaming up there, Halvorsen, what are you doing over Berlin? Oh boy, I said, I got caught. And he says, Colonel Hahn wants to see you right now, my boss. I was a lieutenant, first lieutenant. Colonel Hahn wants to see you right now. I said, what for? He said, he'll tell you what for. And then he said, what have you been doing? I've been flying like mad. He said, I'm not stupid. What else you been doing? And pulled out a newspaper, threw it on the counter, and that newspaper guys will get you in trouble all the time. And there's my airplane. Parachutes coming out of it. Kids chasing parachutes on the front page. And he said, tell me about it. So General Tunner, the head guy over the whole airlift, called and asked me, what are you doing, Hahn, dropping parachutes over Berlin? General, you know we're not dropping parachutes, we're unloading all this stuff. Hahn, you better wake up and find out what's happening to your outfit. Clunk. So I learned from that, when you're in business or whatever, don't try and impress your boss's boss. Take care of your boss and he'll take care of you. But when my boss's boss heard about it before my boss, that's bad news. But Tunner, of course, the general knew. He said, hey, that's a good idea. Let him keep doing it. So it went crazy. People in the States, candy companies that came to the States briefly, and well, okay. we must be near an airport.
Yeah, we may be.
Okay, sounds good to me.
Yes, sir, very good.
Anyway, the candy companies in America said, we'll send all you can use, all you can drop. And so they sent it over by ship. And I came back to Berlin one day and they said, they got a truck stuff here for you. Anyway, over the next almost a year, we dropped 20 tons. All my buddies in the squadron were dropping. And 20 tons of chocolate. We got 23 tons total. At Christmas time, 1948, I took 3 tons and took it out to different hospitals, kids' hospitals, and distributed kids that couldn't chase the parachute. Got letters from them. We can't run. We can't go outside. So I took it to the hospital.
Wow, such a great story. So is this like one of the planes that you were in?
No, this is a Navy plane. Now I want to make it clear that the Berlin airlift was, for the Americans, was not just the U.S. Air Force. They did most of it with C-54s that I'm still flying. The Navy also did it, but they used similar airplanes that we had. The Navy equivalent of C-54, 4-engine aircraft. This was not one of the airplanes that flew the airlift.
I see.
But it brings me, but the Navy was part of the great support group that kept the 2.5 million people alive for about a year.
Nice. So what's your proudest moment of all of this?
Well, for 2 sticks of gum in 1948. In 1970, by then instead of first lieutenant, I was a full colonel. I was in the space program. I'm an aeronautical engineer, and in the space program most of my Air Force career. And they called me up in Vandenberg Air Force Base, where I was tracking satellites, as the head of the satellite tracking facility there, and said, Halvorsen, the people in Berlin that were kids are growing up now with family, and they're telling their kids about how they got chocolate in the skies, and their kids don't believe them. They want you to come over and drop to their kids and shut them up, show them how it happened. We got an airplane over there just like you flew. We'll have the parachutes ready for you. So I went back to Berlin in 1969 and dropped the parachutes, the kids that used to catch them. And then to meet those kids, growing up with families, meet the families then that were affected as little guys, 8 to 15 years of age then, with a family of their own. And to listen to them and have them held a parachute and eating a candy bar that I'd dropped over on the temple off the air base itself. We had a real cry. That really connected all the dots for me. Awesome. The importance, it emphasized to me that the importance of little decisions that you make. Put your footsteps on the path that leads to where you end up, for good or ill. And if you're prompted by the Holy Ghost, it's going to be for good. Awesome. And you don't stop and argue with it. When it just came to clear as bell, go back to the fence. As I said, Scrooge did the same thing. The real heroes are the kids. And the real heroes, too, are those, I had 31 Air Force buddies and 39 British buddies that gave their lives for an enemy, the Germans, who become friends because we're trying to help them preserve their freedom. That's how important freedom is. Jesus Christ said, greater love than this hath no man, that he laid down his life for a friend. 31 of my buddies and 39 Brits gave their lives for an enemy, the Germans, who became a friend. Why? Because of the rewards of service before self. Getting outside of yourself on behalf of someone else, less fortunate. It's not more money. It's not a bigger car, a bigger house. The only true, of course, the happiness that I've found in my life is to help someone who needs help and who's grateful for that help. Gratitude, attitude, service before self, and the little decisions you make in your life put your footsteps where you end up. And those are the things that I learned in my life that's been very meaningful to me. And my dad and mom taught me that, but I didn't realize it until I got through the operation.
Okay. So you're saying that the children actually get the parachutes as well then?
Oh, they kept their parachutes, and when I went back for 4 years, for 2 sticks of gum, they sent me back to Berlin as a commander, a Tempelhof, the base that I flew out of. And we're okay. So when I became a commander of the air base that I started this thing from in 48 and 49, in 1970 as a full colonel, I started a once-a-year open house at Tempelhof. Once a year we'd open up the whole base, invite all of Berlin to come. We'd do a big air show, and bring in a whole big air show. And then our military guys occupying Tempelhof after we took over, set up food booths. We had American food, and we'd feed this crowd. And for the Airmen's Fund, for the guys that were stationed, the military guys, Air Force guys, and Army guys were stationed there, didn't have much money, and fun to help support them. And in those times, when that yearly event, I'd be there on the ramp all the time, and a stream of people would come up. And it was a cloudy day, and we couldn't see much, and the airplanes were coming out the bottom of the radar. And suddenly they're coming to school, and out of the clouds and out of the rain came a parachute and almost hit me on the head. It took me a week to eat that candy bar. I hit it day and night. And these people like that coming up to, one after another, because we plastered the city, and come up and tell me how they cut the parachute, just like that one person that wrote me a letter. Well, I got bags of letters. I had to get 2 secretaries when I was commander at Tempelhof. I'd have them answer the mail. They'd give me the best ones, and I'd give them, but I couldn't answer the mail. And then during the airlift, the kids in East Berlin, the German kids, and there's British, French, American, and Soviet sectors of the city cut up like a pie. And one sector was run by the Russians, the Soviets. And of course, there's German kids there, and they wrote me tons of letters. Said, look, we can't help it over here with these Russians. That's where they put the border. And we're going over, we can cross the border, and we're catching some of those parachutes, you mean for the West Berlin kids. Hope you're not mad at us, but we don't have any chocolate either. Under the Soviets, it's terrible over here. They got a lot better than we have, being under the British, French, and Americans. It's terrible, but hope you're not mad at us. But it'd sure be better for us if when you come around before you land, you come right over our schools, drop it there for us. Why not? Kids are the same on both sides of the border. So I came into Berlin the next clear day with a big load of parachutes to drop on the way in West Berlin. I said, we're going to hold it. We're going to see if we can hit some kids in East Berlin. And we knew there was a soccer field. We see them playing soccer in East Berlin. So we deviated a little bit. It was a clear day, no problem. And went over there and dropped a whole load. It must have been 100 candy bars. We box this big. We drop it out, push it out, escape it. Dropped over there, and the next newspaper had a picture of the kids letting the soccer ball go that way and chasing the parachutes going the other way. And then about 2 weeks later, I dropped several weeks over East Berlin. And the letters, you can't believe the letters from the East Berlin kids. And then I came back from Berlin, landed at Rhine-Main, West Germany. Officer met the airplane. I said, boy, this is going to be bad news. He says, Halvorsen, what are you doing over East Berlin? And then they knew. I said, I'm dropping to those nasty communist kids. He said, you can't do that. I said, the law of gravity is the same on both sides of the border. And he said, that's not the problem. The Soviets have made an official complaint to the State Department. It's a dirty capitalist trick. You're trying to influence the minds of their youth against our system. You got to quit. Understand? And I said, I'm in the military, I understand. And when I went back as a commander of Temple, often the East Germans could come across freely, and especially the open house. The East Berlin's now grown up in 1970, 74, come across the open house. Halvorsen, what did you quit dropping to us for in 1948? And I says, politics, politics. So some of dear friends, East Berliners, it's crazy. It's crazy.
So your first good deed ended up going all across the other airplanes would end up doing the same.
Absolutely. Oh yeah. Oh, my buddies were. We had a huge map in operations, and we'd put a pin where we made the drop, so we'd distribute it all over. We had to quit dropping to East Berlin.
Is that right? All right. Anything else you could add, sir?
Well,
I think we've got plenty. That is a great story.